Hello, this is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
Having your gang. This is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat with me, Kev Dillon, and Lee Cadman. Now, today we're joined by two very special guests, Ashley Nixon, who's been on before, and Steve Seedhouse. Now, Ashley, as we talked on the other show, was one of my boxers. He boxed for us and then fell off the rails, going to things he shouldn't have been doing, went to prison, come back out, and then found the Lord. And now he's a training minister up in Wales. And Steve Seedhouse is over the Detox and Rehabilitation Centre. So the church isn't just for prayers and this, it does so much else. And one of the reasons why I wanted to go on both on today, in times of peril, we normally turn to the church or the mosque or the place of worship. But because of isolation, people have had to be worshipping at home. So thank you, lads, for coming on. And Ashley, how have you found it these mad times?
Yeah, I suppose a lot like everybody else, really. We're so used to being out in the public, we're so used to community, and we're so used to social interaction. I think it's probably hit all of us quite hard to suddenly have all of our social connections cut. I think the lockdown, is going to cause a lot of mental health issues throughout this period. So I suppose the church has struggled in the same way, really. Our community is like any other community, and we need one another. We need that social interaction. We need to be able to spend time together. And so we found ourselves, like everybody else, trapped behind our own doors, really. Myself, it takes me a little while to get used to technology. So I've spent the first few weeks or even the first month frantically trying to work out how to use Zoom, how to use social media better so that we can do all that we can to keep in contact, really. And so through facilities like this, that's what we've done. Our church services have gone online. Our community aspect meeting together has gone online. That's all done through Zoom. And so we've had to learn to adapt, really, like everyone else. An interesting time.
And Steve, how have you dealt with it, mate?
It's a really good question, because as a leader of a ministry and a leader of about 16 guys, 16 families, it's incredibly challenging. And prior to lockdown, we kind of had to adapt our program. So with the guys that we've got in the rehabilitation centre, we had to look at ways of reaching out to them so they can keep their minds active, because as you guys know, mental health is such a at the moment it's real, it's there, and people are talking around it more now. And so we had to adapt, and I had to adapt myself, like Ashley was saying, through social media and using Zoom. I had to change the way I thought to keep myself fit and focused as a leader for the lads, and to be there with them. So we've had to do a more intense one-to-ones with them and their families, and to make sure that they are okay, body, soul, and mind, and just to really make sure that they're okay. So we've had to, as I say, adapt the program. So we've had more people using Zoom to do teachings. We've given them exercise hours. We brought them gym kits. We've got them out on exercise walks. But obviously, we're still in the compound and within the ministry on lockdown. But it's been very, very challenging. Just through this short period, we've lost a brother. We've lost an ex-resident through mental health, and that really affected me. And I did struggle with that. And quite recently now, we've got another chap who, as we speak, is in hospital. And as a church, we're praying for him, but it affects his family too. But it's very, very real. But sometimes you have to look at the good. You need to look at what good's coming out of this. We're talking to our neighbours. We're talking to people that we've never spoken to before during this crisis, and we're actually talking to them and reaching out to them, and conversations are starting. So it's a bit of a mixed bunch of emotions and thought processes how we deal with that, but we have to deal with it on the day, there and then. Some guys, it's hour by hour, day by day, or week by week. And that's how we've been dealing with it.
Because I think, as you said then, Steve, I think we can see this I come from a very loving household. I live with my wife, whose birthday it is tomorrow, so happy birthday, Kate, even though you don't listen to the show.
Yeah.
And my daughter. And I hope from this, when Jasmine's in, like, she's 4 now, coming 5, and I hope when she's in year 11 or when she's in her 20s or 30s and go, you were one of the lockdown children. How was it for you? And she's going, well, I actually had a lovely time because my daddy wasn't at the gym and we were playing and we were painting and we had fun. But hopefully she's one of the lucky ones who can come from that because she comes from a loving home. But those who don't come from loving homes, I feel sorry for them. When you leave the house to escape your problems, and when you can't leave it, it must be a living hell.
Yeah, that's massive, isn't it? That kind of thing is huge. And part of the church is, you know, our hope and what we really function for and exist for is to try and reach those kinds of people. And so when you're feeling and knowing that they're kind of trapped in those situations, it's heartbreaking, really. But like you said, to imagine someone being stuck in that situation is difficult. Yeah, it's hard. So what we found as a church were our priority first and foremost was to take care of our members and those from within the walls of the church. A lot of our obviously older members of the church would be not very good with computers, not very good with technology. So a lot of our time was spent trying to get them set up, making sure they're okay, making sure they're safe. Lots of people have been doing lots of ring rounds. We've split the whole church down into groups and numbered them all so they can all get a phone call, and there's definitely having that contact. But then at the same time, your heart's torn knowing that there's a world out there suffering and struggling and wanting to do all that you can to reach them. And so we're now in the process of trying to look outward a lot more, and we've been doing that as well. You might have heard of the Alpha course. We've started to set up Alpha courses online. So what we found through looking at Google and looking at their statistics and research is that actually over 25% of the population has now started to research prayer. And so one of the things that's happened during this lockdown is that rather than people thinking about shopping or their favorite restaurants or their holidays or buying this or buying that or going out and doing whatever, they've had a moment to just pause and reflect on what's really important in life. And thankfully, a lot of people are realizing actually family is most important. Those that are closest to you are most important, and actually reaching out, hearing from God, drawing closer to the Lord. And we've seen that as a positive of this, but still, what do we do now for those that don't do that? What do we do for those that are trapped in their families where actually their home is the worst place to be? I think we all know statistically after the lockdown, there's the number of divorces that will happen. Social services cases are going to go through the roof. We know suicide rates are going to go through the roof as well. And so the family unit in and of itself is the most important thing in the world, really, isn't it? That's what I think the strongest message through lockdown is going to be. A good, stable, solid home like what you was blessed with, Kev, is I think most important to society, really.
And I think what you said then, Ash, as well, like people having time to actually think, do I need this new pair of Nikes? Do I need this? And starting going, as long as we're all right, that's what matters. But then I think once the lockdown's lifted, and those people who've actually sat down and thought, you know, I don't want to be a plumber. I want to be a photographer. I hope they keep that momentum of going, that I haven't got to be stuck in this. If I choose not to be, money's secondary. But if I want to pursue something, I can do it. I've got the tools to do it. If I haven't got the education, I can pursue that. And I hope it's not just a flash in the pan. Like when you're on holiday and you go, when I get back off holiday, oh, I am going to be chilled. By the time we got at the airport, you're back to your old self.
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting what you said. I mean, like, I think, unfortunately, as a society, these mega corporations, and, you know, not getting too political and stuff like that, but these multiple corporations, they want to make money. And so for generations or for decades, we've been groomed through social media, through advertising, to make ourselves feel as though actually in myself, I'm not enough. And so I need to buy that product. And if I don't have that product, I'm not going to be able to pull, or I'm not going to be able to impress my spouse, or I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. And so we've almost been groomed psychologically to buy, to purchase. And so the message really is, unless you're getting high, unless you're in a massive social surrounding of people, unless you've got all these products, you know, Amazon Prime's a massive example, get your deliveries the next day. They're always getting to you quicker and quicker to feed this thirst for material objects. And I'm hoping, and we're praying as the church, is one of the massive prayers of the church at the minute, is that people will recognize that actually joy and happiness is not found in what the world can provide, but found from within, through the family unit and through reaching out to God. Basically, that's the hope of the church really at the minute. Yeah.
Steve, is there anything you'd like to comment on that?
My sound is gone.
Oh, but no worries. If it gets better, we'll try and back in. Ash, so could you tell me about like some of the stuff that that your church provides within the rehabilitation system?
Yeah, definitely. Let me just. I'm actually in my church now. So we've been doing lockdown as best as we can. I've moved house, so I have no internet at the minute. So I've come to the church to use the internet here. Let me just, because people often have an idea in their mind of what a church looks like. So for me, before I was a Christian, it was Ned Flanders and The Simpsons, and we know that white building is in there, the church, stained glass windows, pews, uncomfortable seats, and someone talks at you for half an hour before you fall asleep. So let me just give you a little look at what our church looks like. This is just the foyer. This is like sort of the welcome area. So as you can see, it's not your typical church building. It's very different. We've got a little makeshift studio in the corner there. And so the church that we're part of is very different from your traditional style or your traditional understanding of church. And so for us, the church isn't the building. The church is the people. And so we're people oriented. It's unfortunate that in the English language, there's only one word for church and then the body of believers. So the church for us is the people. And so rehabilitation centres are about people. We believe every person is deeply significant, incredibly important, has so much value, potential and purpose in life. We believe humanity is made in the image of God. And so we believe that everyone should be treated with the utmost respect. And so for us, we think, well, how can we help the best? How can we do something for mankind, basically? And so a lot of the people in our church, the ministry included, we're all ex-addicts, been to prison, had a lot of brokenness in our lives. And so that's kind of where our heart pulls to naturally. So outside of the building, we've got a rehabilitation centre. So there's a men's centre and then there's a women's centre as well, which takes around 16 guys in the one. I'm not sure of the numbers in the women's centre. From there, then there's supported housing. So that's the next sort of phase. Once they've been through rehabilitation, they've come to terms with their brokenness, they've worked through some of their defects of character, tried to make amends in their life wherever possible. The prayer, obviously, is that they meet the Lord along the way, because that's what unlocks radical transformation, I believe. And then from there, trying to rehabilitate them into supported housing, which is like sort of phase 3. So they move into the community. There's a lot less restrictions. They get a lot more privileges. And it's trying to help them to integrate back into work, really, so that someone who was once a beggar on the streets or a burglar can actually be a tax-paying, law-abiding citizen, really. That's the hope of that kind of ministry.
Well, I like what you said there about rehabilitation, because a lot of the time when you come out of prison, you're just thrown back into the thing that you've just come out of. And the same when you go and do your detox, you get clean, then you come out and then you can't get a job because, oh, that's him who used to be on that. And then before you know it, you're back knocking around with them same people who are doing the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's why for me it was really important to move away from my area. Now, I was blessed to have people like yourself, Kev, and the Lions Boxing Club, and I need to give them guys, like all of you, a massive shout out on here, because without you, I wouldn't be where I am today. It's a simple fact, really. I came out of prison. I had an incredible encounter with God in prison, and then my entire world, my entire framework for logic and understanding who I am was just up in the air. I didn't know who I was or what was going on. My head was trying to catch up with the experience I had in prison, and so I come out of prison, and I'm taking drugs and getting into trouble and coming home, reading my Bible and praying. And then the thought came to one time, I need to go back to the boxing club. I need to go back to that place that was safe for me when I was a kid. And that was what I found, that I had that community. I remember the first day I came back, Kevin, I shared it in the previous podcast. You was there and you just welcomed me in. And so really, I often see church out in the community more times often than sometimes I see it in established church buildings. It's a place where people are loved, they're welcome, they're accepted, where actually, forgiveness reigns. We all make mistakes, don't we? We all make them to varying degrees and elements. Some people like me make massive mistakes that are disproportionate to everybody else. But to find forgiveness and a place where you can have purpose. I remember, I'm in the boxing club, getting fit, feeling better about myself. And then you're like, oh, can you come and help coach? I mean, that's massive. I mean, to be allowed to do something like that when you've been through such brokenness, it gives someone meaning, doesn't it? It gives something back to a person, really. So, yeah, I want to thank you guys for that. I don't know if that was answering the question, but we kind of digressed a little bit there, didn't we?
But you've got to find in life what makes you a better person. That's right. And I think, as I said on yesterday's podcast, the one thing that we want to be contagious at this time is love, caring, and understanding. And if that can be contagious and spread around the world, wouldn't it be a much better place?
Oh, massive. Yeah, massively. Yeah, definitely. I think when this coronavirus first lockdown, we've seen all these images of people stocking up on toilet papers, and that's the conditioned response, isn't it? I need to go and get these items because without these items I can't survive. And then once people got used to the idea, we've seen, clapping for the NHS. We saw all of these heroic efforts being displayed and people actually abiding by the lockdown. And it's almost like humanity came back to the surface, isn't it?
And it was not.
Suddenly started to lift, didn't it? Which is beautiful.
And wasn't it nice when we were out clapping for the NHS? I've lived in this house for almost 10 years, but you've seen a neighbour, you've walked past every day for 10 years, but you go, "You're right, how's the family? Are you all well?"
Costs nothing, does it? Well, I think we're the only species, like, you look at dogs, they can't walk past each other without saying hello, can they? Like, we're the only species that can see one another and just ignore that we even exist. And that's sad, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's a trademark of humanity, and we're broken, fallen is what the church would say. And we're not as we should be, really. And there's a part within us, like the Bible says, that God set eternity in man's heart. There's this longing for perfection. There's this longing for the way things should be. We have these dreams and these desires, and it's kind of why the heart reacts so strongly to injustice, which is what we're seeing at the moment as well, isn't it? Without getting too embroiled in that kind of a topic as well, the heart reacts to injustice, reacts to brokenness, and there's something in us that longs for perfection, almost, really. Yeah.
Lee, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, very, very interesting conversation, Ash. And I can tell you're very passionate about what you do. But going back to families, I think we also ought to recognise sometimes it's not just some people don't have a family unit at all. There's a lot of people out there who've endured this lockdown on their own.
Yes.
What kind of advice would you give to those people who are on their own?
It's difficult, isn't it? Everyone's so unique. What probably works for one probably won't work for somebody else. So my nan's in a similar situation. She's taken coronavirus quite seriously. Obviously, my nan's obviously a lot older. So my sister's been dropping food parcels off to her house on her front doorstep, and she's been very strict with the rules. So we've tried calling her, getting in touch more often. I'm thinking now, I know that I need to be calling her more often. I really do, and I'll admit that on here. None of us are perfect, are we? But they need that around them, don't they? They need interaction. They need people. They need friends. One thing, obviously, as a Christian, I fully believe that no Christian is ever truly alone. That's what I truly believe. As a Christian, one of the things that's helped me massively through my tough times is knowing that God's there with me. And I would always encourage people to turn to prayer. Prayer is not this big fancy thing that needs fancy words. It's just, look, God, are you even there? Are you even real? I'm struggling right now. My life's a mess. I'm hurting. Why is this going on? And you'll be surprised sometimes the way he can answer back, the way he can talk back. I'd encourage people to get a copy of the Bible or to even watch it on YouTube. Just ask, you put in John's Gospel or portions of the Bible. Just listen to someone. I'd take this time when we can't go out, we can't find social interaction. Is this a prime time to ask, is there more to life than this? It probably won't. Look, basically, God's created us as interactive beings, as social beings. And the very start of the Bible is a bit where God says it's not good for man to be alone. And God recognizes that actually humanity cannot exist on its own. We can't function without other people. Our mental health suffers straight away. We were designed for love, to be loved and to give love. And where there's an absence of love, there's pain and hatred and hurt and brokenness and depression and fear and anxiety.
Now, I think whether you're a religious person, which I have my own belief in what I believe, but I think no matter if you're a Christian or whatever, isn't that just a lovely way to think? Put love out there. If you throw love out there, then you can pull it back, and it's like a domino. If you bump into me and I go, "Who's that idiot?" and then I'll bump into someone. But if you walk past and say, "How are you? How's your day?" It's contagious, whether it's a bad experience or a good experience. So as I say, whether people are listening to this now and they're not particularly religious, just listen to what Ashley's saying and listen to the underlining message of love and forgiveness.
Yeah, definitely. Random acts of kindness, isn't it? Yeah, I think the world would be such a better place, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We're almost caught off guard, aren't we, when someone's kind to us? We're always like, what's the agenda? Why are you doing like that? Because we're so used to not being loved. And that's a sad thing, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and if someone does something nice to you, what's the hidden agenda? What's he after?
Yeah. No one does something for nothing, do they, in this world, unfortunately.
The good news is, it's quite easy to change that in some sense as well, because you just have to be kinder. There's no secret. It's as simple as that. Just being kinder to people. And people, there will always be people who have agendas, but hopefully people can see that and can sniff that out now.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
What's the name of your church that you're at the moment, Ash?
It's Victory Church. So Victory Church, we're in Cumbrian, Wales. We are. So if anybody wanted to check out, I'm going to a shameless plug, victorychurch.co.uk. If you guys, anybody wanted to find out more about the ministry, if anybody on here is struggling in addiction or knows somebody who's struggling in addiction, through that website, victorychurch.co.uk, you'll find links to the rehab, to apply for supported housing, or to reach out in any other way, really. So, yeah.
Is that just in Wales, Ash, or have we got any around the Midlands and around the Black Country? I know it's putting you on the spot.
No, not this church directly. Some good churches where you guys are. Let me think. Chornhill Church in Starbridge, on Chornhill Road in Starbridge, is an exceptional church. They're a great church. There's one in Nuneaton, I think it is. I can't think of the name at the minute, but there's a few good churches in the local area. But for us, Victory Church, we're 5 locations here in South Wales. It's all over the South Wales area. And then we've got one foreign countries. I can't think where it is off the top of my head now. Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, when you put on the spot. I hope the pastor's not watching, eh? Like, hey, how can you not remember that?
hey, I had this kid boxing for about 15 years. He's taken a lot of punches.
Yeah. So between the boxing and the drugs, that's my excuse, and we'll stick to that, eh?
If someone wants to comment on Facebook with the name just to help Ash out, we can add that to it.
Yeah, but like again, a lot of churches have gone online now. So a perfect opportunity to check a church out is from the comfort of your own living room. Because I'll be honest with you, the first time I walked through a church was a scary experience. You know what I mean? You've got these preconceived ideas of what church is like. You know, these bunch of social or moral hypocrites really that think they're better than it. It's not like that at all. It should be a family. Walking into a church should be like walking into the Lions Boxing Club. For those of you who've had the privilege to you walk in there, no matter what nationality, creed, whatever your morals are, you're welcome with love and respect, and that's what you should find in a church. So if you ever go to a church and you don't find that, you're in the wrong place, find a different one, is what I'd recommend. I often say to people, churches are like restaurants. Not everybody likes every type of restaurant, but you'll find one that fits for you, which is important.
I think that's a great point, because boxing, church, whatever, restaurants, sometimes you go, well, I should like this. This is what I'm after. But the teacher, the priest, the coach, the vicar, whoever, maybe you just don't out. Like when you get to counselling, if you don't get along with a counsellor or the hypnotherapist or whatever, it's not the right fit. So don't close off to it just because you've had a bad experience. Try again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's good, mate.
Well,
yeah.
Is there anything else that you both want to mention, or?
Ooh. No, I'm not sure.
Well, we'll leave it like that, because Steve's gone down, and ever such a shame. And thank you once again for coming on, Steve. But Ash, while I'm plugging our next couple of shows, just have a think. So I'm going to say, have you got any quotes, prayers, sayings that have got you through stuff? So I'm just going to walk people through some stuff first.
Yeah, that'd be good. Definitely.
On Friday, me, Quinton, Pete, Josh, and Aaron did a podcast, and it's called Addressing the Elephant in the Room, where we're going to be talking about racism within 2020 in the UK. Now, it's a good listen. There might be some things you don't agree with, but these are things that people have gone through, and so have a bit of respect. Then on Tuesday, we've got Emma Chatsford coming on Tuesday at 6 p.m, where she'll be talking about her life of addiction and different things that she's overcome and become this woman that she is today. So, Ash, over to you, bruv.
Yeah, I'm going to shamelessly just read a passage from the Bible, a very famous verse that people have probably heard many, many times before, but I think it's quite apt for the time in the season that we're in. A lot of people are struggling, a lot of people are suffering, and the biggest question that normally comes up in this time is, how can we believe in a God of love in such a world full of pain and suffering? And so I'm just going to read this for you guys. It says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." And so one of the biggest messages of Christianity is that actually we recognize this world's broken and it's a mess, and God hasn't saved himself from that. So obviously we believe that Jesus died on the cross, the ultimate act of suffering and pain. And so he has not saved himself from that pain, but has chosen to join us in that. Now that opens up a whole category of questions, a whole category of problems and issues in and of itself. So if anybody would ever want to find out more, please contact me on Facebook or through Messenger, and I'd love to chat to people more. Or stock up your questions, send them in, and we'll do another episode. So thank you for being in touch.
That's wonderful, Ash. Once again, thank you, bro, for coming on, and we'll definitely have you back on when we're back to normal and you're back then in the Black Country.
Come on.
So until we talk to you next week, take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.
Listen.